Good morning, church family and Facebook. Uh, March the 20th, 2022. Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for who you are. We thank you for your supreme being. We ask your guidance this morning. We thank you for our health and our strength and everything that led us to this appointed place. We just give you thanks, honor, and praise. Heavenly Father, I personally ask your strength and your guidance to give me strength to get through this lesson. Heavenly Father, I just pray that I will say something that maybe someone will receive a word from you. Heavenly Father, in all things I give you honor and praise. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. Once again, good morning. Our subject this morning is Christ, our only foundation. Christ, our only foundation. And that's, you can find the written text from 1 Corinthians, 3rd chapter, 10 through 23rd. 1 Corinthians, 3rd chapter, 10 through 23. Our subject, Christ, our only foundation. Christ, our only foundation. The foundation, we got to talk a little bit what that foundation is. Foundation is a thing that holds things together. You lay your foundation down, then you build upon it. Now, we could be talking about other things as well, but right now we're sort of talking about a building. We may be even going a bit farther. We might be talking about a building not made by man alone, a hand alone. But that foundation holds things together. It's the glue. It's the strongest part. It's a sure thing when you build that foundation. You ever been riding down the road and you see a foundation and you get excited because you know something new? Somebody's ready to build upon something. You have no idea what the materials are going to be used, whether it's going to be brick, wood, but the foundation is there. And building a foundation, you got to be careful. And I'm taking my time on this foundation because once I finish foundation, I might not even get to the scriptures. I might sit down. Because the subject is Christ is the only foundation. So when I talk about the foundation, there's nothing else need to be said. But the foundation, when you build a foundation, you start it from the corner. And you find sometime the strongest stone because it need to be weight bearing. It's got to support all the weight that's going to be on that building. In other words, when Satan comes and push against you, and that could be a daily thing, or when things don't go your way, you need to make sure that your foundation is sure. You ever heard songs like, "I'll bear your burdens"? How can you bear your burdens if your foundation is not strong? You can lean on me. How can the weight of the world lean on the foundation if the foundation is not sure? So getting back to that foundation, when you find that corner, you get a cornerstone. See, the cornerstone is the strongest stone throughout that building. And I'm going to reach out a little bit farther than this. It has been known for the real cornerstone. It was the stone that the builders rejected. We don't want that stone. But it came down to, that was a stone that we still stand on even today. Even as we stand here in this church, we're standing on that same foundation. The end. That's it. That's it. Everything I say from this point on won't be as important as what we just covered. if we know who we're leaning on, if we know who supports all our burdens, if we know who's the strongest part in that foundation, that we can just lay our burdens on them. The church, now getting a little bit into the lesson, the church that Paul established in Corinth was being divided by unsound doctrines. And that's the reason he wrote in the letter, so he can just try to calm things down. And some of the things they were concerned about was marriages and divorces. They were even fussing about what to do with the meats that they used for worship. And they were even debating about who was the most saved, because you were taught by Paul, you were taught by Apollos, you were taught by other religions. So if I was taught by Pastor Ross, I should be more saved than if I was taught by old Roy Brown. You see how that could bring division in the church? But Paul, in today's lesson, Paul writes a letter back to the church of Corinthians just to get them to stick to your basis. Christ should be and was the only foundation. All these other things that they were debating about was a division that Satan was able to use. But Paul was just reminding them in the letter, when I was used as that master builder, I laid out the plan. God was the foundation then. The foundation doesn't change. A little bit about the foundation again. Anybody ever been in a rebuilding process? You add it onto your home, that's a glorious time. Or you rebuild, but guess what? You didn't touch your foundation. Once your foundation is there, your foundation is there. You can add upon your foundation. We can become better people than what we are. The foundation is there. We know the word. The foundation is there. It's what we add in us to make us better or worse, weaker or stronger. Okay? Getting into the text, finally, which now, I'm going to go through this text fast. As long as we leave out of here, and I know you came in here with this understanding, but as long as we all leave out on one accord, see, we don't want to be divided like the church of Corinth. We don't want to be divided as long as we all leave out of here that Christ is our only foundation. And I know we came in here with that understanding as well. But starting at the 10th verse, according to the grace of God, which is given unto me, as a wise master builder, I have laid the foundation, and another buildeth thereon. But let every man take heed how he buildeth thereupon. Like I said, the church of Corinth was having problems of division for several reasons, and Paul was just reminding them, first of all, that God gave him the authority to, Paul is saying, I'm speaking because God gave me the authority to speak. He put me in a position as a master builder. In other words, I have the design. I'm going to be the engineer. I have laid out the foundation, and he's not taking the credit for himself, according to the grace of God, which is given unto me. In other words, he's saying, I'm telling you these things, but God is speaking through me. Paul is not trying to get any of the credit here. And he also added, but let every man take heed how he buildeth thereupon. In other words, be careful what you allow others to build upon your building. That's what Paul was saying. See, even though Paul was in their absence, he had left them a firm foundation. But now, as other leaders had come along, they were putting their doctrine on it. As other leaders were coming on, they were adding their stone and adding their buildings. Be careful who you allow to add upon your foundation. Your foundation should be sure. Your foundation shouldn't rock. Your foundation got to stand firm. Moving right along, verse 11. For other foundations can no man lay than that is laid, which is Jesus Christ. Plain and simple. The foundation's there. And let's talk a little bit about that foundation, what makes that foundation. The foundation of the church is based on facts. We're not guessing anymore. The foundation of the church is based on facts. Fact number one, Jesus Christ was born of a virgin. No other time in history has that been done. Fact number two, Jesus died on the cross for you, and me. He died on the cross for us to save us. Fact number three, he rose from the dead and the grave on the third day. That's the foundation. When you build upon that, you have a sure foundation. When you start using other doctrines and, well, Jesus was important, but he was just another guy. Mary was, let's worship Mary. Mary was important, but Mary wasn't Jesus. And I'm not trying to talk down upon other faiths or religion, but I'm saying that these are facts right here. And this is what our foundation, the church, is built upon. Be careful how you allow other people to either build upon your foundation or maybe even take things away from your foundation, take away from your belief. Moving right along, I know you probably got a question, but I'm not going to let you ask because I probably can't answer it, so I'm going to keep right on going. Verse number 12. Now, if any man build upon the foundation gold, silver, precious stones, wood, hay, or stubble. He's just using some metaphors, some things that they understand. Of course, if you build the gold, the silver, the precious stones, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. And we're going to get into that in a few minutes. You'll be rewarded for that. That's good stuff. But if you build with wood, hay, stubble, oh wow, how did I not think about this all week? Just had a thought. Three little pigs, help me out, Miss Star. I build my house of sticks. And what happened when they huffed and they puffed? When Satan came against them, they blew their little house down. But when they finally got to that house that was built, what was that house built of? Help me out now. It was built out of bricks. They huffed and they puffed, but they couldn't blow the house down. Come on. Moving right along. Verse 13. Every man's work shall be made manifest, for the day shall declare it, because it shall be revealed by fire, and the fire shall try every man's works of what sort it is. Every man's work is going to be tested and tried by fire. I had a note here that I read that this is, on this particular test, this is only going to be for the believers. It's only going to be for the believers. You can't go to heaven by your good works, but you can be rewarded for your good works. And I'll try to get into that a little bit more if we go to the next two verses. 15, if any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, yet so by fire. If any man's work shall be burned, he shall suffer loss, but he himself shall be saved, yet so by fire. Know ye not that ye are the... Okay, hold on. I'll hold up on that one. This is not the final day of judgment. This is only for the believers to be rewarded for their good works or their bad deeds. Not judging your salvation. If you are a believer, you already have salvation. God granted us that. Salvation is free. This is rewarding you for your good works. In other words, you can do good things, but if it's not in the right perspective or the right way or reasons, I won't be rewarded. Can I look at myself? Can I pick on myself this morning? At some point, hopefully, I will say at least one thing that maybe will hit somebody's ear. But the very second that I take that glory for myself, boy, I told him something today. My motivation is wrong. I'm not going to be rewarded for that. You follow me? Even though I will be standing here trying to do a good work, if my good work is not in the right form or not motivated, if anybody gets any credit other than God out of the works that we do, we're not going to be rewarded. And we have to be careful with that. We have to be careful with that. Questions, comments? Write them down, give them to your pastor. I do want to make a strong note here when we talk about works. You aren't saved by your good works, okay? We want to continue to do good works, but you aren't saved by your good works. But when you are saved, you will want to do good works. Is that plain to anybody? In other words, the good works aren't going to save you. But once you are saved, you're going to want to help that old lady across the street, excuse me. You're going to want to help that gentleman fix his car. You're going to want to have compassion. You're going to want to learn more about the word. In other words, all those acts of kindness is not what saved you, but once you become saved, you just can't get tired of doing. Don't get tired of well doing. Okay, moving right along. Verse 16. No, and this sort of changes conversations here. Know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? If any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. For the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are. Now again, Paul is writing in a letter back to the church of Corinth. We can break this down individually, but right here he is talking about the church when he's talking about the temple. And we know we are the temple of God as individuals. God dwells within us. We are the temple of God. But here Paul is writing the letter. He's talking to the church as a whole. And we could also use that same concept now if we talk about the church. We could talk about Cedar Grove. Is Cedar Grove built on a solid foundation? You know, now you can we have individuals that make up the church, but here Paul is talking about the church as a whole. We understand that our bodies are temple of God, but here Paul is talking about the church that he had laid the foundation for at Corinth. And again, he reminded them, don't let anyone defile or destroy God's temple. Well, them people out at Cedar Grove, they worshiping the wrong God. Don't let anybody defile or destroy your temple, as long as we know we're on a solid foundation. Don't let, and we can, as an individual, if I come in here with negative attitudes, I can pull away from the whole church. I can't stop the church, because nobody can stop God, but I can hinder the progress of others. And don't let any man defile the temple of God. Him shall God destroy. In other words, if I try to stop the progress of the church, it just said right here what's going to happen. I just don't want to be in God's way. I want to be in God's will. Woo! I just thought of that one. I don't know where that came from. I don't want to be in God's way. But Lord, help me stay in your will. Moving right along. 18. Let no man deceive himself. If any man among you seemeth to be wise in this world, let him become a fool, that he may be wise. 19. For the wisdom of this world is foolish with God, for it is written, he taketh the wise in their own craft. Going on to 20. And again, the Lord knoweth the thoughts of the wise, that they are vain. Wow. To sum those verses up, none of us are wise compared to God. No, not one. None of us are wise compared to God. And if we think we are wise compared to God, it makes us what? Foolish. Pretty simple. And even the wise ones that are well learned or trained in certain areas, there's nothing wrong with being trained and educated. But even the ones that are well trained and educated in certain areas, God even knows their hearts. So who's the smartest? So who's the smartest? God even knows their hearts and even their thoughts. So that right there proves that God is still superior. If God knows the hearts of even the trained people and their thoughts, you can't take God out of the equation. God is still superior. Moving right along, 21. Therefore, let no man glory in men, for all things are yours. And again, Paul is just reminding them, don't get caught up in bragging about me as Paul or Apollos or the other leaders. Don't get caught up in that. All things belong to God. No one should boast about man. Everything belongs to God. Miss Tiff, what's that song we sing? It's my favorite song. Every praise. Come on, Miss Tiff. Every praise is to our God. Every word of worship is to our God. Every praise. In other words, the religious leaders, if they're teaching you how to worship, every word of worship is still to our God. So even in my weak attempt up here today, if I say anything that falls in your ears that's good, every praise still go to who? Every praise still go to God. Every praise. My neighbor, okay, whether I do good or bad up here today, that's not the point. But somebody somewhere is going to come up today and say, Mr. Johnson, we appreciate your lesson, you did good. Regardless of whether I crashed, burned, or what, that doesn't matter. Somebody's going to say that. And one of these lessons that I was attempting to try to teach a while back, I know I was stumbling and bumbling, and my neighbor was so kind, and she was trying to just encourage me, and I didn't know how to thank her. Because I knew I had not fulfilled what I thought God had wanted me to do in my teaching. So she broke it down to me. She said, Mr. Johnson, learn how to say, just to God be the glory. Thank you, Ms. Laura, I love you. That's my neighbor. In other words, just learn how to say, to God gets all the glory. If God gets the glory, has not my task been fulfilled? We're here to highlight God. So to God be the glory. Whether, and I pretty much already talked about this, verse 22 and 23, whether Paul or Apollos or Cephas or the world or life or death or things present or things to come, all are yours. To God gets all the glory. And ye are Christ, and Christ is God. In other words, whether you were taught by Paul, Apollos, or anything else, as long as God gets the glory. And we understand that, what's our subject? That Christ is our only foundation. In a very weak challenge this morning, because I'm through with the lesson, as a church, we're talking about a church right now. We're talking about Cedar Grove Church. I can be personal now. We're talking about a church. The cornerstone has already been selected. As a church right now, the foundation has already been laid. As a church right now, the foundation on many occasions have been tested and tried, but the foundation has stood firm. We're still standing on that foundation. And my hope is built on nothing less. But now as a church, I challenge us. What are we going to continue? What materials are we going to continue to build upon our foundation? What materials are we going to continue, and what doctrines are we going to continue to build upon our foundation? Only build things that's going to last, and only build things that are sanctioned by God. Thank you.
Good morning. Announcement. In-study Bible, in-person Bible study every Thursday night from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. This month item to donate towards the Thanksgiving basket is 1 roll of paper towels. March announcement, the fourth Sunday, Sister Barbara McCoy, Richard, Richard through instruction, Sunday school lesson. Wait a minute, let me start back over. The Wisher through instruction, Sunday, Sunday school lesson for March the 27th, 2022, ti- ti- um, title and text, Members of Christ, Sunday school led by Deacon Demetrius Rogers. Coming events, remember my sick and children and those who requested prayer. Please join us every morning, every worship morning from 11 a.m. in here person, uh, Facebook Live. And remember, Christ is our only salvation.